Hello everyone, we're going to get started. Thanks for coming. We've got a full agenda this evening. So briefly, just want to ask, who is this their first time to this Grange? This Grange, yeah? You get it. All right, welcome. So myself and Dina and some others are also Grangers, which is why we get to use this clubhouse for this event. How many of this is your first carbon conversation? Yay, welcome, welcome. So I'm going to briefly introduce what we've been doing. We started this back in 2019, kind of off and on, focusing on climate solutions and groups and organizations that are doing something to address the issue, and figuring out how we each can play a role in that. So that's the overall thing. And first of all, I want to thank my wife Dina for orchestrating some meals and snacks. And the Grange for hosting us, and of course all the speakers that are still to come. We do accept any donations, so if you're feeling generous, there's a jar over there. And I show this slide. This is from Project Drawdown, which came out in 2017. It was the 100 Solutions to Reversing Global Warming, and I still reference this pretty consistently. And they continue to produce great work. It's focusing on things we can do. But it doesn't necessarily talk about climate resilience, this group. So in other words, that's sort of that's what we're gonna talk a lot about tonight. And then also we have some archived talks on the website. If you wanna go back and look at those, they're there. This event I'm recording will be posted online as well. Thank you to our sponsor, District 5, County of Sonoma. We got a little grant from them for this event. And as far as next carbon conversations, I'm leading a Climate Victory Garden walking tour on the 26th here in Sebastopol. I did that last year. It's focusing on front yard food forests, if you can imagine. And then we're still working on a fall series of carbon conversations. So the Americorps and Grizzly Corps folks that are gonna share this today probably will get this better than I, but I wanted to share you a couple of distinctions. Both the California Climate Action Corps, that's what that CCAC stands for, and the Grizzly Corps are both Americorps connected and partly funded by California State. They're slightly different focus areas, but wildfire resilience seems to overlap. And then fellows usually get an 11-month assignment and with a local organization. And then Americorps was defunded at the federal level in April. Boo.
Louder.
Yeah. It'll be one of my signs on Saturday. Anyway. But both Americorps and Grizzly Corps, which are California-based, are exploring ways to continue, and there'll be some more information on that later. The major theme with all of this is building resilience. So this evening, we're going to hear from several that are called fellows, Americorps fellows, that have been working in our community to build resilience in different ways. And first up, and then we'll wrap up at about 8 and do a little panel discussion. We can hit them with questions and other things like that. I will also say that I met several of these folks back in February. There was a climate resiliency conference at the Great Casino, for a few days and was just really inspired by what they're doing. So, which has led to why we're here tonight, to share what they've been doing and hopefully inspire you. I want to invite Emma up. And Emma, Sonoma State graduate, right? Alright. So this is the cue up sort of right back.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Emma. Just gonna pull up my presentation here. I am a Sonoma State alum, so graduated last year. Very excited to be here and to talk to you guys about building resilience as a California Climate Action Corps fellow. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I started and how I got into this role. So as I said, I graduated from Sonoma State University last year with my bachelor's in biology. And I got to do a lot of cool ecology and evolution projects. So I worked in the entomology lab department. I was a naturalist and part of biology outreach. And I also did some really cool, assisted on some really cool research with California tiger salamanders. So here are a couple of pictures just from undergrad so you can kind of get a sense. This was really where my interests were aligned and heading into. And I really enjoyed my time doing all of that. And so through the entomology lab, I got introduced to a board member at Conservation Works, and I got connected to that nonprofit, and that led me to applying for California Climate Action Corps. So I had no idea what Americorps was or Climate Action Corps before I heard about it from Una. And I was super, super interested when I went to the first ever intro session meeting, and you heard from all these past returnees about how much they loved the program, how they're so excited to do it again, how they wish they could do it for their whole lives, and it really solidified what you were going to feel during the fellowship. And so I was really excited, and I got paired with Conservation Works, which was really great, and my fellows with me are Lily and TJ. You'll hear from Lily tonight. So yeah, it's been really great, and I'm excited to talk about what I've worked on. So my interests naturally aligned with entomology, ecology, but I also really enjoyed teaching. So I got involved with a lot of projects with the youth, with environmental education, and so a couple of my projects are up here. I've done a couple different things. One really cool project is with Mendocino Land Trust. We're planting Viola adunca up in Mendocino Coast. It's an endangered host plant for an even more endangered butterfly, the Barren silver spout butterfly. And so we have this really large grant that we are a partner on, and it's been so cool to go out and do plantings, maintenance along the coast. Really enjoyed that. And then I was working with School Garden Network, some of you may know them. They're another wonderful partner, and we were doing Harvest of the Month, so we were bringing local harvests into elementary schools, and a lot of these students, it was their first time ever trying a lot of these foods, and so it was very cool to be there. I led a volunteer planting for a native pollinator garden at Austin Creek Elementary School in Santa Rosa. So that was really great. And we do a whole bunch of tabling and a whole other slew of things. But the one thing I'm here to talk about today is my grant that I've been working on for the past few months, Mendocino Kids Fire Smart. So this was a grant that we got through California Fire Foundation, and we got funding to bring K-8 wildfire resilience curriculum, climate-caused wildfire specifically, to schools in Mendocino County, and we got to offer them a slew of things, but I kind of was starting from not a lot. I didn't know a ton about wildfire, but I knew a little bit, so I was really lucky to be able to work with Mendocino Fire Safe Council. They were doing a series of fire science experiments up at Hopland Research and Extension Center. Remember that, it's going to come up later. And I got to learn from actually another Grizzly Corps fellow that's up here, that's Emily. She works at Mendocino Fire Safe Council, and I got to learn from her how to talk to students about wildfire and how to bring that up, because it can be a little bit intimidating. So that led to me building my own lesson, and I had to come up with something that was interesting, engaging, could fit into 45 minutes, could apply to K through 8. So I went through a whole bunch of different scenarios. I worked a lot with my team and went back and forth, and I set up a Fire Smart Bingo, and it actually ended up being quite a hit. It took a lot of workshopping, some trial and error, but just to explain a little bit about how it works is that every student got a unique bingo card. This was our K through 2 version for our not as strong readers. And every square on the card represents one aspect of a fire-adapted ecosystem or community. And we went around and selected popsicle sticks that would give a random location. And we did that 3 times, so each student would have 3 locations, and then a climate change event card would come. And it would take away one healthy aspect of their ecosystem. So this is an example. So I can read that one out. The land has become very dry because of the long drought. The ground is hard and breaks easily. The plants are thirsty and dying, and strong wind dries them out. Remove your bingo marking from XYZ. And so we would go through rounds of that, making it really difficult for them to reach bingo. And that got them super riled up. And they were super, super like, no! I think I have, some pictures here. And I also had some stickers that I made. And so one student put it right on her water bottle, which was really awesome. And it was such a fun lesson. And the kids really, I think, learned a lot. We got to give them a learn and tell form. So they wrote one thing that they learned. So it was really great to go back and read all of those. And yeah, this is the other part of our grant. Wanted you to remember Hopland Research and Extension Center, because we are also hosting a 3 workshop event up in Hopland. It's going to be on June 21st from 9 a.m. to 12. And we're going to look at grazing for wildfire resilience. It's a really useful method of wildfire prevention and mitigation, and it's free and everyone's invited. And I have little flyers if you want to take one and learn more. And then before I pass it off, I just wanted to, from our climate impact reporting log, we record every month our climate impacts. And so just up to this point, me and Lily and TJ, the 3 fellows, have planted 11 trees, almost 500 native plants, and conducted climate outreach and education to over 1,500 people, just between the 3 of us. So, just think about when you amplify that times 400 people across the entire state. That's the kind of impact we're making. So, thank you very much, everyone.
Good job. Malia and Alina, yeah.
Oh, I was going this way. Sorry. Okay.
Or we can trade on. Yeah, you take it. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Perfect. So we will introduce ourselves on the next slide, where I can pass the microphone off nice and conveniently. But I wanted to point out that this is our wonderful team at Fire Safe Sonoma. There's 4 fellows, and ignore the Christmas hats. That's the only picture we all had together because 2 of our employees just had babies. So we don't have a lot of pictures of them. And we have Roberta and Becca in the room here. Woo woo! Yay! So we're coming to you from Fire Safe Sonoma. We're also California Climate Action Corps fellows. And we can introduce ourselves now. Yeah, so my name is Malia. Like I said, I'm a California Climate Action Corps fellow at Fire Safe Sonoma. And yeah. What's your name?
My name is Alina, also California Climate Action Corps fellow, Fire Safe Sonoma.
Oh, here, I could click too.
So cool. We're figuring out the 2-person presenting. Yeah, so So that's who we are. We'll get a little bit into our backgrounds. Awesome. So we wanted to share, similar to Emma, kind of where we come from and how we got into this work. So I have a little slideshow with a little collage for you guys. So my motivation for like climate work, I think, starts when I was a kid. I grew up like camping and hiking and rafting and paddleboarding and all the good things outside. So I grew up with a love for nature and also for people and kind of a passion for education. And I actually started my college education in the education field. So I was going to go into early childhood education, and then I actually switched over to environmental studies with a concentration in society and environment. And I got my education at Sonoma State, also Sonoma State alum. So during that time, I also did a land management internship, which kind of was outside of my comfort zone. I had started in education and kind of thought that I was going to exit my college career with just soft skills, no like hands-on sort of hard technical skills. And then I learned how to use tools and really work with the land in conservation. So I really enjoyed that, and then when I graduated, circumstances took me to Santa Barbara, and I ended up as a garden teacher, where I combined kind of both of those passions for both like working with the land and also education into one career. So that was my little yearbook garden page. Those are my students in my garden. And it was really a blast, and I really felt pretty passionate about what I was doing, and especially in the space of like diversity and inclusion in environmentalism. It was just kind of, in education in general, it was lacking. A lot of my students were English second language or Spanish only, and their access to both the outdoors and to like educational materials that they could understand was just really low. And as an educator who was trying to like help them through, preschool through 8th grade, it was really frustrating to see just that lack of inclusion in that space. And I also am not, unfortunately, a Spanish speaker, so it was difficult. I did my best. And I think coming into this position here at Climate Action Corps, circumstances brought me back up here, and I'm happy to be here. And thinking about that background in working with English second language and people who only speak Spanish and just our marginalized communities in general, and renters, like I myself am a renter in Sonoma County. How does fire education and fire safety play into that? Like, where do I fit into this sort of puzzle of fire education and safety? And how do other marginalized demographics fit into that? And how can we include that into the work that we're doing at Fire Safe Sonoma to expand our audience and our reach, because it's really important work. So that was what got me into what we will talk about with our project. And I'm going to pass it to Malia to share her motivations as well.
Thank you. Alina's been a really great partner to work with at Fire Safe Sonoma, and if you could guess, I also went to Sonoma State, so we also have that in common. The first thing that's written up there is climate anxiety and storytelling. That's kind of how I lead everything that I do, because I have a lot of climate anxiety, and storytelling helps. So I'm gonna kind of introduce myself and why I'm here in a storytelling type of format. A lot of times when people ask me how I got into fire now, I like to look back on my life and laugh at the fact that when I was in high school and applying for colleges, it was around 2017, 2018, 2019. I looked up at Sonoma County. I'm from the peninsula. And I said, there's too much fire, I'm not going there. And now I work at fire mitigation in Sonoma County. Woo! So it's funny how that worked out, right? But it's been a more complicated journey than that. Right after I started college, we got sent home because COVID happened. And it kind of hit me, I am not happy because I'm not spending time outside. When I go on my long walks with my dog, that's when I feel really good. So how do I get more involved? How do I push myself to be outdoors more? And I got an email from some program from my school that was offering a naturalist training. So I said, okay, I'll sign up for that. And I took the online classes, could have paid more attention, but I went to the first in-person volunteer day, which was the first time I came back to campus since COVID, and the woman who managed the preserve said to me, like, "Are you looking for a job? You could be a land steward." I was like, "I'm not qualified. I've never done this before," but I got a job, and from there, I just continued on that journey. I became a part of the naturalist team, leading tours for elementary school kids. So much fun. They're so curious about everything. I also got to teach land management classes, like the training that you went through. And I was not only a preserves land steward, but I got to be the restoration crew leader on campus. So I had all these different areas that I got to do hands-on work. And by that point too, I decided I'm going to be a global studies major. Really interdisciplinary, a lot of different social sciences, and I never liked social sciences growing up. So I'm glad that I chose that, because I never would have learned all that I learned otherwise, and I got to choose really what I focused on. So my first two climate classes were the anthropology of climate change and the geology of climate change. These classes happened on Tuesday and Thursday, one after the other. So these soon became the saddest days of the week for me. It was really stressful, and just every Tuesday and Thursday I'd go home and be like, "Man, we're ruining the planet and we can't do anything about it. This stinks." But I'm going to my job, and I'm gonna go make a trail in the woods so that people can come enjoy it, and that'll make me feel better. Further into my studies, I ended up going to one of my professors during office hours, and I asked him, I love your class so much. It's one of the most engaging classes I've ever been to. But how are you not so hopeless and depressed all the time? I don't get it, because even just going to these classes, I don't know what to do with myself. And he told me, it stays with me to this day, education is his form of activism. And so I still believe that to this day. Not any one of us can solve all the problems in the world, but we can connect over it. And like I said earlier, climate anxiety, I've been feeling that, I'm still feeling that. But the more I connect with people, tell my story, and listen to their stories, the more hope I feel, because we all feel this way. And if we're all doing one little thing, that will add up. And that's kind of why I applied for this Americorps position. All through my studies, global studies was kind of a way to send people into the Peace Corps. And I was for that growing up, but then I studied abroad in Costa Rica. That's what that picture's from, with the Pura Vida little house thingy. And I took a class in politics and learned about how much the US is interfering in Latin America. It made me feel really icky. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to focus on local issues. And I know that engaging with the environment and my local community makes me feel good. So I'm going to do that. And so I went from being a naturalist and an educator to now connecting with the community about fire and connecting over hope. And this idea that, yes, this is a huge, scary issue, not one of us can fix it, but we can all work together and do something about it together. And that kind of leads into our next slide, which is the main project that Alina and I have been working on. We've been working on a little Ready, Set, Go curriculum project. And I think we decided to come together and start working on this because of our shared interests in education and making sure that there was accessibility to everyone in a very engaging and interesting way to learn about fire and all things related to fire. I have a little story around that too. I went out to dinner with one of my friends, and we were practicing our Spanish with the waitress, and she asked us what we were doing, and my friend's like, I'm a psychologist. She was like, wow, that's amazing. What do you do? And I was like, I work in climate change. She was like, I do fire mitigation. She was like, oh, they have jobs for everything nowadays. I looked at my friend and I asked him, like, did I say climate change wrong? Did I not translate that right? She was like, no, I just don't think people are learning that much about climate change. That's crazy. So that's another huge goal of this project. As you can see, our little poster's in Spanish. So we've been really trying to reach different demographics here. And I'll let you say your part on this.
Figure out where we practice this as a very conversational situation.
Yeah.
So passing the mic back and forth is going to be a learning experience. But yeah, so we really wanted to reach a different community base than what our typical audience was. I think we were both pretty passionate about making sure that it wasn't just homeowners, or it wasn't just, you know, middle-aged and older. It wasn't just white people who were getting access to fire safety education, because as I've heard Malia say, and I'm going to steal your line, but fire doesn't really discriminate, so when it comes, it's going to hit us all. And there's a lot of people that we wanted to reach that we just weren't quite reaching, that we knew we had the capacity to do. So that's kind of where we were going with all of this. And I will also click forward. So kind of our outcomes with this project, we hosted it at we worked with the Sonoma Community Center. So we were able to tap into like their listener base, I guess, their audience, as well as our audience. So we had a pretty cool crossover with probably about a third English speaking and 2/3 non-English speaking. And we were able to have a translator, which was really cool. Becca and Roberta helped us navigate that. And it was really, I think one of the most special things that we both were really excited about was that the audience members were like entire families. So we had like whole families coming in with like their kids. I think the youngest was probably like 7 or 8 years old. Like there were little kids there learning about fire safety with their parents, with their older siblings, and these demographics that we were like, oh my gosh, how are we going to reach these people? We reached them all in one presentation, which was great. But there's obviously more to do. But one of the coolest parts in the aftermath of that was that through the CCAC, we have this like mandated reporting type of stuff that we have to do. Emma shared her reporting results at the end there. But one of the things that we do is we have a survey that before and after any educational event we have to distribute for it to count as like an educational event in the eyes of the Americorps grants, I believe is what it is. So we distributed these surveys, and we didn't get too much into taking pictures or taking names of people, just current circumstances, keeping people mostly anonymous, but pretty much all of our Spanish-speaking audience in these surveys, whether they were exaggerating or not, but they shared that they learned a lot, and that they were going to continue to take action after our presentation, which was really encouraging. We were really excited about that. And I'm going to pass it back to Maria for a little bit more on this.
Yay! Yeah, and one of my favorite parts of this presentation was, although we were presenting in English, there were Spanish translations and headsets happening. We had Spanish speakers raising their hands and answering the questions from the audience that we asked in English. And it felt like we were reaching them, and that they felt welcome to share their opinions. And it felt really good to see that engagement and know that everyone felt safe to participate and they were actually learning and engaging. And that was like the most exciting thing. It's not just a boring presentation. Everyone's coming and they're having fun and they're learning. They said it in the survey at least. So it's been really fun, and yeah, I'm just really grateful for such a fun partner and such a great host site too. It's been great, and I wish that this term was longer. But yeah, I think that's about it. Some little details is from a volunteer event, and then also Alina and I got to be victims in the disaster simulation together, so that was really fun. But thank you so much.
Lily. Do you know this one? It's like that advances it.
Great.
Oh, I gotta get yours up.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Do I need to get closer? Oh, I can hear it now. Hello. First, I just want to say thank you so much to Tor and Dina for hosting this event. I feel honored to be here speaking in front of all of you and with my fellow colleagues as well. So my name is Lily Roberts. I am a current California Climate Action Corps Fellow, serving my time at Conservation Works with Emma. And my title there is a Climate Resiliency Coordinator. And just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into some of the things that I do as a Climate Resiliency Coordinator, what does that even mean? I support projects that build resilience in our communities, Sonoma County and Mendocino County, and those look like urban greening projects where we're planting trees in communities, helping to build school garden curriculum or support wildfire resiliency education. But one of the projects that I am primarily working on is something called Rain Catchers in Your Neighborhood, which is an initiative that provides rainwater tanks to schools or community gardens and other public spaces in our community. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit of that project with you today. But if there's one takeaway message that I want to leave you all with, it's that the positive change that we want to see in the world, it really starts with us. It starts with all of you. It starts with you showing up here tonight, and it might start with you going home and sharing with somebody something that you learned tonight. And I think that each and every one of us in this room is so special. I think humans are so special because we have the capacity to create, to change lives. And we do that by smiling at a stranger, or giving a generous tip to your server, or by devoting our time to something that we care deeply about. And I hope that the passions that I have for climate stewardship might change people's lives. That's the hope. So I'm going to read a quote that comes from a conversation I had with Chloe Brewer, who I think is one of the best second grade teachers that I know. It's the children's joys that transform into dreams and the hopes they have and the career paths they choose. Hopefully they are choosing joy, right? Chloe Brewer is a second grade teacher at Grizzly Elementary School. They have a school garden on site, but no garden teacher. So Chloe has committed to taking her second grade class out into the garden every Thursday at 2 p.m. The kids run around, they explore, they tend to the garden, and they pick off some veggies off of their stalks and they eat them raw. It's a really exciting time for them. I think these kids are so lucky to have Mrs. Brewer because whether they know it or not, she's instilling new joys in their lives every week in the garden. So Chloe and I have been working together for several months on the Rain Catchers in Your Neighborhood project. Apologies for the words looking weird up there. And I visited her class to teach some garden lessons on some of those Thursday garden days, and we've also worked together to create a school-wide workshop at Grizzly Elementary School to teach the kids about the importance of conserving water and to connect this to something tangible in their garden, which is their 2 new rainwater tanks that Conservation Works helped install this past winter. So the event was named Catch the Rain, Save the Salmon, because Grizzly sits right along Mark West Creek in Santa Rosa, and this creek has been given a very special distinction for being one of the best creeks for salmonid restoration in the Russian River watershed. And these photos represent some of the activities that we conducted that day. So the 2 photos on the left represent an art project that the little ones got to partake in. So the little cards that this boy is holding up are little cutouts that represent about a dozen different native species that we find in the Mark West watershed or the Greater Russian River watershed. They got to color on these and then tape them up to a map, which you can see on the left photo, that represents their ideal Mark West watershed. And the idea behind this was to get the kids to understand this concept that, we can create, or we can envision the world in the most beautiful, vibrant way. This map was representative of the most vibrant, beautiful, Mark West Creek, and they got to see that by putting those pieces of paper that represent different species that we find that shows how biodiversity really makes a difference in a healthy watershed. The other activity that the older kids got to participate in was a rainwater harvesting model, so they, otherwise known as permaculture in a pan. So the sheet pan here represents their landscape, and they had to use their own creativity and skills to design a rainwater harvesting model using foil, straws, cups, and the fun part was using the spray bottle to represent rain, and then they measured the water that they conserved. And so this was a really great lesson for them to understand how systems function well or not well. Let's see. Here's some more fun photos I wanted to share. The girls posing with their rainwater harvesting model. And then this photo on the right I thought was just so cute. It was a kindergarten class that came into the garden for their lesson, and they all were wearing these green hats that say, "I can help the earth." And this event was a huge highlight for me because we had over 400 students come through our workshops that day. That's 400 students that are being educated on watershed, water conservation and watershed management, and then they go home and they tell their family about it. And I just thought of this fun memory I can add to this presentation, but the next week, or no, Emma, it was like 2 days later, we were tabling in Windsor, and we saw some of the students that we educated that Friday, and they were with their parents, and their parents were so excited to tell us everything that their kid told them that night when they went home, and it was just so inspiring, and I felt like that is exactly why we do the work that we do, because it's a ripple effect, right? And another reason it was a highlight is because the efforts don't just stop there. I feel like when you have a whole school-wide event like this, how can that motivation just come to a stop? It doesn't. It keeps going. It's a ripple effect, and it's beautiful. And Chloe, that second grade teacher that I keep talking about, she is continuing to push forward, and right now her plan is to build a math curriculum for the students that incorporates applicable concepts that can be explored through garden spaces, which I just think is so amazing. So, to come back to the concept of joy, I expressed to you how Chloe is fostering joy with her students in her garden every Thursday, and how myself and the wonderful volunteer team that I had with me on the day of this big event, we're fostering joy through environmental education. But I just want to finish up by talking a little bit about how my joys have served as my motivation for dedicating my career to the environmental field, and specifically to the field of conservation. So growing up, I spent a lot of time outdoors playing in the natural world, and I hold so many of these memories so close to me, and I really feel like they serve as a foundation for my love for the environment and my commitment to climate resilience. So some of these memories are jumping across river rocks with my dad, or camping in the backyard with a bunch of my friends in a huge tent, or catching tadpoles with my older brothers and bringing them back home and putting them in our hand-built pond that my dad made us when we were kids. So, all of these have in common this connection to nature, and I feel sorry, I get so nervous speaking in front of people. So I feel, thank you. I feel like I'm really giving back to my community and helping to instill this culture of care by bringing people together and fostering a love for the earth and creating small joys that I really hope can serve as a foundation for someone else's passions and commitment for climate stewardship. Thank you.
Taki, and I'm going to talk about the work that I do in Western Sonoma County, which is really focused on forest health and wildfire resilience. So currently I work as a forestry project coordinator at the Goldridge RCD, but last year I was a Grizzly Corps fellow there, and so that's really what I'm going to focus on in my presentation. And my background, I grew up in Petaluma, and then I moved up to Oregon, and I went to Oregon State University, where I studied environmental science and ecology. And I was really focused on environmental restoration and ecology, plants and native plants. But in my last year, I took a fire ecology class, and that kind of brought everything together and was really inspiring. And so then I ended up pursuing this pathway. So a bit about Grizzly Corps. It's a fellowship program, and the Grizzly comes from UC Berkeley. So they were founded at UC Berkeley at the Center for Law, Energy, and Environment, which is known as CLE. And the projects really focus on food sovereignty and wildfire resiliency. They send fellows who are mostly recent college grads out to rural communities all throughout California. So this map shows where all the current fellows are stationed this year. And as we talked about a little bit before, Grizzly Corps was an Americorps program, but they lost their federal funding in late April of this year. But they're not giving up. They're not going anywhere. They're gonna take a pause from recruitment for the next season. But during that pause, they're going to try to reorganize, plan for the future, and look for other funding mechanisms. And they are in a fundraising phase, so I put the donation link there if you're so moved or if you know anyone who would be. So as a fellow, you get placed at a host site, and my host site was Goldridge Resource Conservation District, usually referred to as an RCD. And Goldridge RCD covers this western piece of Sonoma County. There's another RCD in Sonoma County that covers the rest. And yeah, the RCD is a special district, so it's kind of like a school district or a fire district, but our purview is natural resources and conservation. We work on projects ranging from watershed health, salmon habitat restoration, erosion control, to things that I work on like wildfire resiliency and forest health and forest management. As I think everyone here is aware, Sonoma County has had very intense wildfires in the last decade, and they've been very devastating to the communities affected by them. So we have this very immediate need to increase our wildfire resiliency. And these are the three main projects that I'm going to talk more about that I worked on throughout my fellowship, all focused on wildfire resiliency and forest health. So the first one, I actually get to partner with a lot of the people in this room, Fire Safe Sonoma, on this defensible space project. It's a partnership with Fire Safe Sonoma, Safer West County, Goldridge RCD acts as the project manager, and it's funded by a grant from CAL FIRE. So this project serves Occidental, Camp Meeker, Monterey, and Forestville, and it provides free shipping services and also rebates up to $1,000 for defensible space improvement work. So this is really focused, just as a reminder, on that first 100 feet around the house, which is referred to as the defensible space. And the idea is that this project can hopefully help take away some of the barriers, because working on your defensible space, any type of tree work, can be really expensive. And while the $1,000 rebate might not get everything done, hopefully it can help people get more done or feel empowered to get started. Another important part of the project is that we provide every applicant with a free educational defensible space assessment. And that's going to provide education, and then also you're going to kind of end the day with this checklist of things you need to work on, which hopefully help you prioritize and feel less overwhelmed about how to tackle your defensible space. So during the time of my fellowship, we served over 140 chipping requests. We completed 15 rebate projects and had another 50 in process. So now in the year since my fellowship, we've completed over 60 rebates now and have maybe another 60 in process. So it's been great to continue that work and keep spreading the program or the project around West County. And it's going to end at the end of this year. So we're getting close to the finish line now. The next project that I spent a lot of time on during my fellowship was this workshop series that focused on resilient forests and watersheds. This was funded by a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and it was a collaboration with Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District. These workshops could change a lot depending on the community's needs, so we customize them for each community. They might be a neighborhood meeting in a space kind of like this, or an outdoor, out in the field kind of technical skill building workshop. They were all free and based on community needs. They all focused on some combination of forest management, wildfire resilience, and watershed health. And then this grant also provided funding to provide technical assistance as well, so some of those communities got together and then we were able to help them continue on with the journey. Maybe they had an idea for a project, we could help them continue to develop that. So during my fellowship, I helped organize 3 of these in-person workshops and 2 online meetings. The combined attendance was over 100, and then again in the years since, I've been able to continue this, and we way more than doubled those numbers. So that's been really great to continue these workshops and get out into the community. I think another really important part of these workshops is getting people together in person so they can collaborate, they can also meet their neighbors, get talking, and then also see the work on the ground, because sometimes you hear the different jargon or phrases like shaded fuel break or thinning or limbing, etc. But we get to take people out and actually see that work on the ground. So we might go somewhere like this, where on the left side of the road they had a prescribed fire. On the right side it was untreated. We got to see it on the ground and really have those conversations. Similar experience here. There's the tool trailer. Shout out tool trailer. Okay, and then the final project that I worked on during my fellowship is the Sonoma County Forest Conservation Working Group. Now this working group has been around for 20 years, so I was just stepping in and kind of increasing capacity and helping with coordination. It's comprised of local landowners, managers, and practitioners from many organizations. They have monthly meetings where there's a guest speaker, a presentation, and it's really a space for collaboration and learning. So at these monthly meetings, all of the members give updates. They talk about what projects they're working on, ask questions, maybe they need help with something. People start collaborating, and it can really be a great space for creating projects or helping each other out. And my role with the working group has been to help coordinate the guest speakers, meet with the steering committee, and attend those monthly member meetings. So that was it. Those were my main projects, and I've been able to continue them since, and definitely wouldn't have been able to get there without Grizzly Corps. So, thanks, Grizzly Corps.
Awesome. Saba.
Hi everyone. After all of these presentations, I have a big confession to make. I didn't plant a lot of trees. And I also didn't clear brush. I did not. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of the metrics that California Climate Action Corps expected of me that I was managed to do. If this was the class, I would fail it badly, really badly. But something happened which was more personal for me, and it had nothing to do with the metrics at all, and it was a personal transformation. One of them was that I found my lifelong mentor through this fellowship, John Shaw, and I also found my best friend, Matthew, who's also a co-fellow. Everyone knows him. So, and he's like 15 years younger than me, and We just bond like crazy. And I met a school. So this was my first job in the US. I got to know everything about America through this job. Every problem, every good thing, every joy, every problem. It was like a deep dive into America. John is right here. That's John right here, my mentor. That's Matthew, and that's Peter. These are all the teachers that worked with me at a school called John Muir School. And John Muir School is a really special school because it believes in second chances. This is for 18 to 25-year-olds who have struggled to go through a traditional education, sometimes because of family issues, sometimes because of learning disabilities. They believe in second chances, and they decided to have me as a fellow at their organization, and it was brilliant. I loved it. And I wanted to read something out to you guys. To give you a background on my own story, how I got to the US, and it will all make sense at the end, I promise. When I chose to join the California Climate Action Corps, it was not just an easy next step. It was a commitment to addressing the roots of challenges I had long tried to work on and failed. Before moving to the US, I had spent years in Pakistan, working on reproductive health education. Nothing to do with climate action directly. I believe that giving girls access to education, healthcare, and the freedom to choose smaller families was the path to progress. And for a while it was. We trained communities, we developed menstrual health tools, we saw real shifts in awareness and agency. But in 2022, a historic flood, really terrible flood, devastated much of Pakistan. And these villages that I worked with, these women whose houses I used to sit and work on all these educational tools, they were all like gone. And in one season, it felt like all the progress was swept away with the mud and debris. That moment shattered the illusion that development could be separated from the climate. It wasn't just a flood, it was so much more. I realized that climate collapse isn't a future problem, it's a storm that's already arrived, and especially for the vulnerable. And so I thought the California Climate Action Corps would be a nice pivot into the work that I really wanted to do. And what happened was that suddenly, working with the school gave me this flexibility to get to know all the local nonprofits in the area, discover farm trails because our school actually wanted to build partnerships with them, try to plant trees, try to recover surplus fruit, learn wildfire resilience, and you could do it from your backyard. So my mentor was like, try it at home, try it in your backyard. And the approach that he had was that he didn't believe that environmental work just is in textbooks. He didn't just teach math and history, but he guided students through relationship struggles, homelessness, addiction, abusive households, the grind of minimum wage survival. And Matthew, 15 years my junior, he was immersed in books about human evolution, anxiety, ADHD. He modeled resilience every day, and he always arrived with free food for all the students from me, with empathy and always plans to fill the school. After school hours, our conversations flowed seamlessly between philosophy, consumerism, American exceptionalism, religion, colonialism, the merits and limitations of Western psychology, global politics, and the elusive meaning of a well-lived life. John didn't just instruct us to plant trees, he challenged us to understand why they were cut down in the first place. And that for me was the first time, because I felt like that was my only job, to plant trees, not to understand why they were being cut. He also told me not to just live in the present, but to grieve the past as well, and so I could meaningfully in the present shape a better future. And with him, we hosted speakers around grief, climate grief, intergenerational trauma, cultural conditioning, inequality, migration, and art. and it all somehow aligned with the climate. Every time we organized field trips, and this was my duty, and I loved it, I get to choose some of the partners that we were working with. My favorite was Goatlandia. I don't know if you've been to Goatlandia, but no matter how tough a kid is, when a baby goat is in their arms, they just melt. It is so crazy to watch. I have seen gangsters change with goats. And then female founder Deb, who was leading Goatlandia, she would welcome these kids with vegetarian food. And I was like, this is perfect. No lecture can talk about vegetarianism or vegan food. Like, when you get served a beautiful meal, the lecture is already given. They loved the food. They really enjoyed it. And then the field trips to all these different places became like an exposure therapy. Like, it was, we didn't say anything when we went to a beautiful redwood tree. We just stood there and we marveled, and that did the job on its own. And felt like I didn't have to prepare much for our field trips, so that was really fun. And we bonded over animals, we bonded over so much more. Just thinking about it just makes me happy. My climate action strategy was, if they really love something, why wouldn't they want to protect it? And I think this is more important than any lecture or statistic I could ever deliver. Our field trips with land paths, maybe some of you know about them, they emphasize the power of land acknowledgement, native practices, the harsh reality of genocide, the ongoing cultural erasure in America. These experiences made me realize the importance of ethnic studies in understanding and addressing the climate crisis. In our classroom, I shared stories about my home country, Pakistan, its colonial past, authoritarian present, and environmental struggles today. Storytelling became my tool for connection, and it became my students' tool. Soma, a student dealing with PTSD, shared her story of unsafe migration with me through Google Translate, creating this bond between us, which was beyond language barriers. 8 months into my fellowship, Americorps experienced sudden funding shifts, resulting in it ending, and me deciding that I will go off on my own path. And my own path became storytelling, and this was my first experience. I went to a school in Novato, and I told the story of Julia Butterfly, who I find the most inspirational. If you guys know her and can connect me to her and I get to see her in person, I would be like, incredible. And I told the story, and then I asked the kids the solutions. I was like, I have no idea what to do next. We need to save these trees. You guys tell me what to do. And the kids came up with brilliant ideas. And I was like, okay, we should just start writing them down. We should just give them some funding, get it all started as quickly as possible. And it was really funny because one of the students turned to me and told me that she was from Pakistan and she wanted to do what I was doing. And I was like, yes, let's do it together. And this is something that also happened, totally like, can't be fit in the metric. I decided to go and live in this cottage in Ore Springs, just as an experiment, because I was talking about everyone reducing their carbon footprint, and I used less water, and I was like giving these lectures really to my husband, and he's like, could you do that? Could you really lower your carbon footprint? And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So I rented this for 2 months, and I tried to live there, and it was hard. It was so hard. At night, I did not have any heating. I would run out of water. There was no shower. My dog even hated it sometimes. He wanted to go back to Sebastopol, to our nice home. And then I think the end of this whole experiment was when I found 2 rats in my oil jug that I was using. They had created a hole inside, and then they had dunked and died there. And that was so hard for me. I was like, I can't do it. This is too hard. And so that was the end. I realized, yes, I could do with little, but not that little. that is the end. And so I just wanted to, what I realized was that my whole secret sauce of understanding how I could change the world was storytelling and then community. All the people that I met, the students, the mentors, Tor, and there's so many people who I've connected with. There you are. And I think that's what I want to take with, I think that's what can change, just community. It's the most powerful climate solution, just to have people sit together. And I don't think I can go back to business as usual. I'm just in the mood to build something new. I don't know exactly what it is. I've taken some time off to do it. Hopefully I figure it out. If I don't, I'm pretty sure something else will come along. So that's pretty much what I got to know and experience through the Climate Action Fellowship. Thank you.
Awesome. We're going to shift into panel mode, and as we do that, I want to invite Pauline, my oldest daughter, to come up here and share her Grizzly Corps and current job while we do that. But the rest of you, grab a chair.
Hi everyone. I was put on the spot about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no worries.
I really take to heart all of your stories. Those were incredible, and I can relate very strongly because I was a Grizzly Corps fellow myself in 21, 22. And kind of like Rose, I worked for an RCD. I worked for the RCD of the Santa Monica Mountains down in Los Angeles. And that's where I learned about wildfire mitigation and got into all of this. And I similarly came from a background of growing up playing in nature and always thinking about how to educate and how to bring education into everything that you do. And so after 1 year as a Grizzly Corps fellow, I got hired on at the RCD, and then I worked there for several years, and now I've started and run a Fire Safe Council, much like Fire Safe Sonoma, but we're a regional Fire Safe Council in the Santa Monica Mountains. And so it's honestly quite incredible, I don't believe it myself, that I've gone from Grizzly Corps fellow to executive director of the Santa Monica Mountains Fire Safe Council in just a couple of years. But that really is the power of these fellowships, right? Like, it's an amazing program, it's amazing people. One of the things that I find so amazing about Grizzly Corps, which I know better than Climate Corps, but you're a great program too, talking to the director of Grizzly Corps, it's like, a lot of the host sites, the organizations that these fellows work with, didn't come back after a year or two because they hired their fellows. They built the capacity that they needed in those organizations. And that, I think, speaks to how strong these programs are and how amazing the candidates are, the fellow, all of you are incredible. I'm inspired. and so I think the panelists said if that's just my 2 cents of my story, so thanks for listening.
Aside is this past year starting Fire Safety Council, who you were able to hire.
Oh, true. And then the full circle is, well, as first at the RCD, I turned around and then started supervising the next year's fellow, and I was like, how did this happen? And then she went on to work for Grizzly Corps, their organization, Cindy. And then as I started the Fire Safe Council, I was like, I need Grizzly Corps fellows. How else am I going to have qualified people to help build capacity? And so this past year, in our very first year of operation, we've had 2 Grizzly Corps fellows, and we could not have done it without them. They've been absolutely incredible. And then next year, we're going to have 2 Climate Corps fellows. And hopefully when Grizzly Corps is going again, we'll have Grizzly Corps fellows again. But it's absolutely amazing. These programs are amazing.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I have questions, but I want to open up to any of you, if you have a question for our awesome group here. Pauline, can I get yes? Well, anyway, anybody? To run the mic? Yes, Anita.
First of all, thank you for having this. As someone who's been a climate educator for our ecology, doing education for our programs, I know your struggles. I've been doing this for over 25 years. It's heartbreaking how many people just don't get it. The light bulb doesn't go on. So you've inspired me to know that the younger generation gets it, cares, and is doing the work. So bless you for that. My question is to Aaliyah and Malia. I like the fact that you guys did a program where you were educating people outside of the English-speaking community. I witnessed where the city of Santa Rosa had put on a presentation that was all in Spanish, and as far as I understood, advertised it widely, and we ended up having 2 people show up, and it was really frustrating because I know the city spent probably a couple $100 on this consultant and all the time and energy to put together a presentation. So my question is, how did you advertise this program and get people to come, and how rewarding was that? Once hopefully you saw the light bulb going on, it sounded like it was really informative.
All right. I'm running the mic because it's useful.
Okay. So the main way that we were able to reach that community is we had a connection with the Sonoma Community Center from a previous presentation that had been given, and I think like looking on a really local level at like where people gather, I think having like a good understanding of your community bases. But the Sonoma Community Center is a great resource, and he has a pretty big base of people in his audience that are Spanish speaking. As for rewarding, it was very rewarding.
Yeah, just emphasizing that, like finding the groups that you know cater to Spanish speakers. So at the Sonoma Community Center, a lot of the posters that are up there are all in Spanish, and a lot of the activities they host are all in Spanish. So finding those centers wherever you're working, and then making the connections with those groups so that they can then help you reach out to their networks. And I gotta say thank you to Becca, because Becca did the original presentation there last year, also as a fellow, so woo, go Becca! And we were just lucky enough to have her guidance, and yeah, it turned out really great. Especially, I don't know, it exceeded our expectations.
Now it's a series.
Yeah, we're gonna have another one soon.
Any other question percolating out there? Or shall I throw? Oh, Roberta has one.
I really have a question.
Get a statement? Is it a? You gotta have a question in your statement. Do you?
Maybe. I just want to thank you for sharing those early experiences that helped you understand the connection that we all have. I started thinking about my own early experiences. I won't bore you all with those. How many people here also started to remember those experiences? Yes. So, okay, so maybe the question is, how did you decide to do this way? It was powerful and wonderful, and thank you.
But just their stories reminded Roberta of her own stories about connecting with nature and over here. So I'm going to ask a question unless somebody else has one. Helen?
Yes.
You're formulating a question. Okay, good.
I really appreciate the fact that you brought up renters, because property ownership is a major divide, and the whole class issue is a real problem with environmental activism.
So what's the question?
The question, how do we do more of that?
Yeah.
There we go. Anybody comment, question?
How do we do more with that? You guys have pretty good success with that.
Go ahead.
You wanna
Sure.
comment?
Yeah, sure. So I think rethinking the way that we look at like environmental justice, kind of opening your mind to, like we have a lot of materials with fire safes and a lot on defensible space and home hardening, and looking at that and saying, okay, this one doesn't apply, but what can? We look a lot at evacuation preparedness. How do people increase their evacuation, like literacy, and how do you improve access to that information? So I think, yeah, just like rethinking, at least that's what we did, was like rethink what here exists, like what structures already exist, what information already exists that we can then repackage and not have to like start from scratch to create more equity in like environmental education, or in our case like wildfire safety and education. And it made it a lot easier to go off of things that like already exist. Evacuation is like really important. And it exists, and it's something easy that I think anyone can understand. And it's really important for renters, so that's what I would have to say to that. Anyone else?
You want to just pass it down?
You have a renter kind of question. Is this picking up? No?
A little bit. Okay, never mind.
Sort of, not really.
Just to add on to that, because you guys are amazing, but I think another important part for renters in particular is language, and anyone, making something more accessible. For example, a home ignition zone evaluation, a free consultation about home hardening and defensible space, should be available to anyone regardless of whether you own the house that you're living in. But how that's worded is going to be tell someone whether they're allowed to sign up for that or not. So I make a point to say residents rather than homeowners, and it's very, very common for wildfire home hardening to be focused on homeowners, but a lot of people aren't homeowners. I'm a renter, and so how you word things, even in the liability waiver, you have to sign it. Well, it's like, okay, do you have a place where I'm, the renter, I'm the homeowner, do you have to go get your landlord to sign? Well, sometimes it's a property management company. Are you still going to give someone the information that they need to, make their home more resilient, or go ask their landlord or their property management company, hey, I learned this. Can you do these changes? So is the waiver accessible for them to, sign up for this? Very simple language.
Awesome. Well, let's table that one. I have another question for you.
Speak up.
Okay, so this is probably not working, but I'll pretend like it is. So, what advice would you give students in high school that are figuring out their college and career paths now?
I'm holding the microphone, so I will answer this first. I resonate a lot with that because right after high school, I was like, I don't want to go to college. Do I want to go to college? I don't want to know what I want to do. And then after I got out of college, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. How am I supposed to find a job? And so I went through, 4 years at Sonoma State, and this position felt like the most amazing transition from a student into the career world, into having, just a career in general. It was so forgiving and so focused around developing and growing your skills, and we got assigned really big projects, but we were able to be like, I don't know how to do this, and they were like, that's okay, that's what we're here to help you with. So it's a really great transition period, and that's what I would say is just go out in the job world and see what it's like and figure it out for yourself. And Americorps is not only doing something great for others in your community, but it's a really great learning opportunity. That's what I'd say.
My advice for the young ones would be, you never really know what you love until you try it. So go out there and just try a bunch of things. Even if you sign up and then you realize you hate it, you can quit. It's okay to quit. I'm in my late 20s, so I've had a lot of those moments where I realized that I hated some things that I tried. And then when it comes to the career world too, I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I wanted to go into government. I tried it. I had a wonderful internship. And then I experienced the nonprofit world. And I had no idea how amazing it would be until I was in it. So that is my advice to the young ones. Just try, keep trying.
Yeah, I guess on the note of trying different things, I was trying to keep my presentation short, so I didn't get into my background before I went to Oregon State University, but I love community colleges, and I went to the SRJC right after high school and got to just try a lot of things out in an affordable way, really high level of education, a lot of options, and yeah, coming into this career field was like my second career. So I went to the JC, I tried different things there. I did their culinary program, it was really fun. I became a baker, that was really fun. And then it was like, cool, this is cool. And then by the time I always like loved outside, but by the time I was older, I had more ability to like focus on it and go back to take those science and math classes with my post 25-year-old brain, and that was really helpful. And I also did that by starting out at a community college and then transferring to OSU. So, community college.
I think I agree with everything, and I wish I was younger and got your advice. I would say that everyone tells you to follow a passion. I would say follow what makes you really like angry and annoyed about the world, and the opposite. Just start looking for what is outside of that, and really be sure what you don't like. And then like kind of, yeah, I used to, totally off topic, but I used to make like an ideal partner list, and you should also make an ideal job list where you're like, okay, I want flexibility, I want to be outdoors, I want this, and it might look too ideal, but there could be an organization that kind of like totally fits in. So that would be my.
It's my turn. I was actually thinking about this beforehand because when I went into college because it was kind of like an expectation of my family, which was pretty sweet because now I have a degree. But I did not know what I was doing in college. The only reason I picked global studies as my major was because there were so many different options for the classes I could take, and every single one looked really interesting to me. So if you're going to college, do things that look interesting to you, and that's the reason I picked my major. I didn't say, oh, I want to know more about the globe. I said, oh, I want to take this cool class and this cool class, and maybe I'll study abroad. And I did, and it was awesome. And with that, like, with just trying everything, I did the naturalist program that led me to a job, that led me to another job, and I just became so involved with Sonoma State Center for Environmental Inquiry that they have continued to give me more and more opportunities. I've continued to volunteer with them and just continue those connections. And when you build those connections, those people will look out for you as well. So, yes, follow what you like too, not just what you don't like, but also like keep learning. That's the biggest thing. Either what you do like or what you don't like, but just allow yourself to try new things, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Okay, it's a lot to... yeah, I would echo everything they said, and I think trying to think of something different to say. I was a kid that didn't want to go to college. I didn't anticipate going to college. It was kind of just a chance that I did. I also did community college. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got that actually changed my mind on that was don't close any doors on yourself. So if you have opportunities to take them. And I think coming from a kid who didn't want to go to college because I didn't like the system of like, go to college, get a job, work until you die. Like, it just sounded awful. Work-life balance, I think, is very, very important. And it's okay if your job isn't your life. It's okay if your job isn't your whole world. It's okay if you have a life outside of your job, or if job isn't your life goal. That's okay. Just don't close any doors. Yeah, keep trying new things.
Awesome.
I have a comment.
You have a comment or question?
Hi, Roberta.
So as I sit here and look at these young people, I also look back and see all of us. Most of us in here are at least twice their age, right? One of the things that I learned from our fellows, and start crying, is climate anxiety. These guys live with the climate that we're leaving them. And I apologize for that. We all got to step it up and do more, and then do more to stop all this nonsense and prevent the youth that comes in behind these young people from suffering the climate anxiety that they have. And that's one thing I learned from my fellows that I had to share with you all. It's an important message. Please, let's keep that in the forefront of our minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. That took care of my next question. No, that's awesome. Yeah, it was like, okay, no, never mind. Regroup. So we're getting down to the end, and I want to leave you with this question. It's like, what new skill or improved skill will you take away from this experience, and how do you imagine using this going forward? And maybe a comment on what's next for you. You want to think about it? Who's ready?
I'm think about it.
Who's one?
Awesome. I'll take it. Hi. I've learned an insane amount of skills through this fellowship. A lot of professional skills. I've learned a lot of organizational skills and management skills. So it's hard to pick one because I came from a world of full-time retail. And you just don't get that level of what you do is so important. And you have the power to make a real impact with real money, and that should go to people who really need it. And it puts a whole different pressure on it, but I think at one point I was like, I can't do this is too much work. And then there was just one day where it really clicked and it locked in, and I felt like, like we could do this, we can manage this project, we can get it done, like it's gonna happen. And so, yeah, I think that level of determination is something you can only get out of doing something in the nonprofit space or in the climate space, because we don't get paid a lot. We get living expenses pretty much, and that's it. So you really do have to care about what you do. And I'm going to continue working in this space, and I'm going to continue working on climate projects. And yeah, that's my next steps.
I'm trying to think of a really cool thing to say, but honestly, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences in my life that have brought me to where I am today. And I think the only thing that keeps popping up in my head as a major skill I've learned in this experience as a Climate Action Corps fellow is environmental education, and really just being in front of 40 crazy kids and trying to get their attention and learn how to express or give a message that'll impact them when really they just want to throw things at each other. And I'm not an expert, but it's been so great. And Stefan over there, we did this big workshop together, and he was the main facilitator for when the class would come. He'd be the one to welcome them, and he went to the bathroom in one of these moments, and I was like, where is Stefan? I need Stefan. And so I had to step up and be the one to welcome, was like 60 kids in this small garden space and give a spiel on the spot. And I was terrified. And so thank you, Stefan. That's a big skill that I've learned. And the other part of this question,
What's next?
what's next? Oh, I just love being in this field. I feel like I have found exactly where I'm supposed to be in my career and in my adult life, and I'm just so ready to keep building connections with this community and beyond, and make a big impact. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, something I learned, we get to learn a lot. Another thing I didn't mention in my presentation is that, I think it's maybe the same for all the Americorps, but is it like 20% of your hours are actually for training? And so it's not just your job, and you can also, depending on your program, I think they're all different, but really seek out what you're interested in learning. And so even while I was, doing my day-to-day tasks, I then also was signing up for different trainings and got to do the UC Naturalist training, and other folks might learn a language or anything like that. So you get this training time built in, which is really great. Maybe just like a hard skill that I learned is how to do a defensible space assessment, and I'm gonna keep doing those. Yeah.
If you need to, you can think of it.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it, so.
I'm going to start with the second part. I don't know. I think I mentioned that I don't know what I'm doing next exactly. But I think it's so hard to put like the skill in a way. So I thought being more and more and more closer to your authentic self. Is there a word for that? Getting closer and closer and closer. And sometimes I feel like, okay, this is the most real that I can be of myself. And then I go into a room and I talk about something that I'm passionate about, and I get more. So I just, I'm going to figure out a word for that one day. That's what I learned.
Rose took mine. I wrote down Defensible Space Assessor Certification. But what I was getting at with that was the skill of reframing really scary things that are really overwhelming. Like I learned what an Eve was this year. And sighting, that should be self-explanatory, but I learned what that was this year too. But now I know how to communicate all these scary things in a way that gives people hope. Alina and I had a defensible space assessment, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? One of those days. And we talked to this lady, walked around her house, told her what plant she should focus on for your rebate program, actually. Hours. Anyway, as we were leaving, the woman said to us, "Thank you so much. You have really given me hope." And it made me feel so good, because talking about that is really draining. And there's always so much you have to think about, and it's hard to be hopeful when there's so much going on and it's so expensive to make a change. But yeah, I also this year, you mentioned the trainings, and this year I decided to educate myself a lot more on Native American history and contemporary history. And I took a number of workshops, went to a bunch of different webinars, and that is something that really makes me feel very, very passionate. And I hope, I don't know what I'm doing in the future, but I hope that I can be someone who helps to give more people access to work like this, because doing work like this makes me feel so good. And the fact that there aren't, like, how many of you guys speak Spanish up here? So why aren't there more Spanish speakers doing this? How many of us are Native American? And that could be a personal thing too, but I don't want to out anyone right now. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, but either way, I want to see more representation, and I might not be the person who can embody that, but I can help uplift other people. So that's what I hope to do in the future. Within this field, I lost all ability to speak there. Here you go. Yeah.
Okay. I have a very specific thing that I have learned this year and that I'll take with me, and I'm actually going to credit it specifically to you, Roberta. I feel like I have learned how to be, bear with me, I'm going to try to be articulate with this, how to be angry and how to use that anger for good, like how to be angry with injustice in the world, how to be angry at things that are wrong in a productive way, because I was not a person prior to this experience who gave myself permission to do that. And I think I just admire that so much, Roberta, that you're able to do that and channel it into the work that you do. So thank you, because that has given me permission to do the same. And I know that I'll take that with me. Yeah. Thank you. As for what's next for me, I don't know. Who knows? Hopefully good things. I hope to, we do get an education stipend through this fellowship, so I hope to use that to go back to school. I'd love to, not a kid who doesn't want to go to college anymore, I'd like to go to college again. So I'd like to get my, my master's degree in something. Also, who knows? Yeah, hopefully good things. So yeah, thank you guys all for being here.
Right. Let's give these fine folks a rounding of applause here.